The Something You Should Know podcast today is sponsored by Boostability, the leader in search engine optimization for small business. If you have a small business website, go to myfreewebsitescore.com and get your free website score and analysis to find out how well your website performs when people search for what you sell. myfreewebsitescore.com. myfreewebsitescore.com from Boostability. Today on Something You Should Know, there is a secret folder in your Facebook account that has messages in it that you must see. I'll tell you how to find it, and I bet you'll be amazed. Plus, the incredible power of word-of-mouth marketing and how to do it.
The average word-of-mouth conversation in the United States is only 32 seconds long. One friend telling another friend, hey, I know this about you. I know this about this product or service. I think you should know about it because I think it could be important to you. Boom.
Plus, if you stay in hotels, you've probably heard about how germy and disgusting the TV remote and the telephone are. But there are a few other disgusting things in that hotel room you need to be aware of. All this coming up today on Something You Should Know.
Something you should know. Fascinating intel, the world's top experts, and practical advice you can use in your life today.
The Something You Should Know podcast
with Mike Carruthers.
So the whole idea of this podcast is to give you some interesting, fascinating, and useful information that you can put to work in your life today, should you choose to. And I want to start today off with something about Facebook. Even if you are an experienced Facebook user, think you know everything about Facebook, you may not know about this. It has to do with a secret folder in your Facebook account that you don't know about, and you really should know about. But before I do that, the Something You Should Know podcast is, well, it's brand new. And I want to get as many people listening as possible. And so I'm giving away a $100 Amazon gift card to somebody every week who leaves a rating and review and sends me a screenshot of it. Ratings and reviews help because it gives us more visibility and it gives us credibility, and it really helps to grow the audience. And so if you would be willing to leave a rating and review, in return, you'll be eligible to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So just take a screenshot of your rating and review once it posts on iTunes and email it to me at info@somethingyoushouldknow.net, not .com, .net, info@somethingyoushouldknow.net, and you're automatically eligible to win a $100 Amazon gift card that we're giving away this week and every week. Now, first up today, we're going to talk about Facebook, and I found this amazing. And even if you are the most savvy, expert Facebook user, you may not be aware of this, and it is something you should know. There is a secret folder on Facebook Messenger, and in that folder are probably messages from people you know, and you have no idea they ever sent you a message. I guess what happens is when you get a message from someone on Facebook who is not a Facebook friend, in other words, they just find you on Facebook, and rather than go through the friending process, they just send you a message cold. And apparently, sometimes Facebook alerts you to those messages, but oftentimes they don't. And apparently the assumption is that if you're getting messages from people who aren't your friends, they may very likely be spam messages, and Facebook doesn't want to bother you with a bunch of spam messages. So they just put those messages in a folder and never notify you, and you'll never know they're there. Now, recently, several journalists went on their Facebook account and went through the process and found this folder, and every single one of them had messages in that folder from people they knew that they had no idea were there. And when I heard about this, I went through the process. It's a simple process. I'll tell you how to do it in just a second. I had 9 messages in there, and I think 5 of them were from people I knew. I had no idea that they were there. And then my wife looked, and she had 30 messages, and there were some of them that were kind of spammy, but most of them were from people she knew who were not Facebook friends who had sent her a message, and she never got them and never knew they were there. So here's how you do it. If you're using the Facebook Messenger app, on your phone, you tap Settings in the lower right-hand corner, open up the app, and then tap Settings in the lower right-hand corner, then select the People option. And then you select Message Requests. Then you tap the See Filtered Requests option, which sits under any existing requests that you have. And there it is, this little-known place on Facebook Messenger that is full of unread messages. Now, once again, on the Facebook Messenger app, you tap Settings in the lower right corner, select the People option, then select Message Requests, then tap See Filtered Requests, and there you will find them. Now, if you do it on the Facebook website, you just log into your Facebook account, click on Messages along the left-hand side of the page, and then click Message Requests and then Filtered Messages, and there you will see if you have any messages from people that you would otherwise never know were there. And that is something you should know. And now let me introduce you to my guest today. I'm sure you've heard the phrase that the best kind of advertising is word of mouth. That's been a saying for a long time, but if you can get people to tell people who then tell more people about whatever it is you're doing or selling, that's the best way to spread the word about anything. But how does word-of-mouth marketing work exactly, and how do you make it work for you? Well, my guest is Ted Wright. Ted is the CEO of a company called Fizz, which is a word-of-mouth marketing company in Atlanta, and he's also author of a book called Fizz. Welcome, Ted, and I want you to start by telling the story about how you first got interested in word-of-mouth marketing. It's a great story, so start there.
So it all came about. I had my Eureka Moment when I was at the University of Chicago for Business School. I was in the computer lab one day and early in the morning and noticed that the ambient light in the computer lab was blue, which was basically the light that was thrown off of the Netscape screen. And so everyone was using Netscape, and Netscape was only kind of an okay thing. And I was using Netscape, and of course I was cussing at the inanimate object because it really wasn't giving me, a decent search return that I needed. And somebody leaned over and said, "Hey, why don't you use Google?" And I thought, well, I know what a Google is mathematically, but I didn't know what that was as a company. And so I asked, and they told me to go to the site, and I went to the site, and voila, beautiful, fast, efficient, right. I did some A/B testing, and then I was gone. And about 20 minutes later, the person next to me is going through the same thing, and 5 or 6 hours, so I lean over and I share the answer with them, and then 5 or 6 hours later I get up, I'm done writing my paper, and I stand up, and the ambient light in the room has turned from blue to white, because person to person it had just gone just like an old game of telephone, and everybody had converted to Google. And I was like, that's really interesting. No advertising, no commercials, no anything. They just changed 30 people through just conversation. And no money changing hands, no, paid endorsements, anything like that. I also watched TiVo get adopted in the same way. And this is the very late 90s, so this is like 98, 99, and 2000. So I had my Eureka Moment, which was, I think word of mouth is going to come back and start to play a bigger and bigger role. So I built the algorithms, and I built all the mechanics to do a replicable word of mouth marketing campaign that gets results. And our first client was Pabst Blue Ribbon. We've gone on from there.
Well, that's a great story. But I think that a lot of people believe that, Google is a great example and TiVo is a great example because these are new, unique, outstanding products, and that if you're just another Xerox copy machine kind of guy, how could this possibly work?
So you used two words. You used new and you used unique. And then there's another word that in there we could drop in, so differentiated. New and unique doesn't really make a difference. It's differentiated because TiVo is in fact not new. TiVo is just a digital VCR. And Google is not new. It's just the Library of Alexandria, much faster. And somebody else is doing the work that you don't have to pay for them. So it's not like Sergey invented library science. He just said, I think I can catalog all of the world's knowledge. And they wrote an algorithm to be able to do that. And then they put the labor onto you and I saying yes and no by how many clicks we did, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the question is, for everybody out there, is is my product or service talkable? Is it worth one consumer saying to another consumer, hey, I know this thing about you, and I know this product or service could solve a problem that I'm pretty sure you have or that I actually know that you have, and let me take a minute and tell you about this.
Isn't it, though, human nature that it's got to be pretty outstanding for somebody to go to that trouble?
So in the 10% of the U.S. population that is an influencer, they have three particular dominant personality traits. They like to try new things because they're new. They like to share stories with their friends, and they're intrinsically motivated. So if you're that influencer personality, and by the way, Ed Keller's done some great work that says it is that 10% that drives the other 90% into buying everything. Influencers are not looking for life-changing miracle things to share with their friends. In fact, there are things that are life-changing and miracle-creating. They're looked at slightly askance because we've all been burned for other reasons by things that actually didn't live up to that. What they do like to find is they do like to find things that are better than what somebody is currently using. So instead of drinking this beer, why don't you drink this beer? Because it has a lot more flavor and it's a lot tastier. Or instead of driving this minivan, have you thought about that minivan? Now, the difference between a Chrysler Town & Country and a Honda Odyssey is probably not much. I mean, four wheels, electric windows, all the rest of that. But one of those has a much more superior design, so you spill less Cheerios in the floor. And if your mom picking up kids and Cheerios in the floor is not your favorite thing in the world, even though that's not going to change the course of somebody's life, it's a little bit better, and that's what influencers talk about. Anything that will change somebody's life for a better, either a little bit better or a lot better, it's all equal because an influencer seeks to share stories with their friends as a way of, expressing like or expressing love for somebody. Like, I want you to have a better day. I think this will help you do that. Therefore, I'm going to tell you about it.
And do those 10% know who they are? Do people self-identify as influencers?
When you talk to people about influencers and everyone says, oh, yeah, you mean my friend blank, and they just add the name in there. I think very few people, wish to wear the underoos of an I am an influencer, and you have the big sort of cape and tights and the big I on your chest. I think what goes on is that people in their earliest years just run into these things give me joy, sharing stories about stuff or things or services that I like and sharing that with people and having them have a better life or think, oh, wow, that's cool, or come back and tell me, wow, that's cool. This is something that's important for me, and so I do it. And so I continue to do it. I mean, we believe that somebody's personality is pretty much set by the time they're 10 years old. There's some psychoanalysts that believe in some schools of thought that think it's much earlier. But generally, if you're a North American, by age 10, 12, 8, somewhere around there, those parts of being an influencer are pretty much set in your personality. And it just depends on how dominant they are, and that depends on how much joy you get out of doing those specific things, which is sharing stories with your friends.
So what are the elements of cool? What does something have to be cool?
So as opposed to cool, which is an excellent word, but let's do, what is this, let's say, makes a story shareable? What makes a story talkable? And which could also easily be cool. A story is interesting to the influencer, so they'll pick it up and they'll seek more information about it. It's relevant to the influencer's audience and is authentic to the way the influencer currently views either the brand in specific or the category in general. So a story is cool or a story is readily shared among friends that know each other if it is interesting, if it is relevant, and if it is authentic.
So can you give me an example or two maybe to kind of flesh this out?
Sure. A story that is interesting, relevant, and authentic. let's just look at some of the work that we've done. We did some work with a company called Bissell, and they make the world's greatest carpet sweeper. But that design is, a century old at this point with some tweaks. So why is this really new? So it turns out that this Bissell sweeper is fabulous for picking up little annoying things that kids under 5 generally drop on the ground, like the little tiniest Lego pieces that have all the sharp corners, and those are the ones that parents always step on in the middle of the night. And so it turns out that it's very good at picking those up, and it's as good as a vacuum cleaner, but your vacuum cleaner, it sucks it all the way through the machine, and it ends up in the bag, and you got to go through all the cat hair to get the little piece out, because, your 5-year-old or your 6-year-old obviously cannot be playing, Mace Windu with a red lightsaber blade because it's a purple lightsaber blade. So as a parent, you're like, okay, well, let's just try and figure this out. So the Lego sweeper ends up being the Bissell sweeper ends up being the world's greatest thing to pick up Legos with. So you go and you demo this, and if you're a Lego parent, of which there are hundreds of thousands across the United States, you're like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Now the kids, I'm not stepping on these things, and the kids love using the sweeper, and they pick them up, and my house is cleaner, and it's less of a mess, and it's fabulous. Now, if you're not a Lego parent, you totally don't care because you don't have Legos in your house, and you're not stepping on them in the middle of the night. But if you're a Lego parent and your kid's got 10, 15, 20,000 of these little bricks, any one of them can come and bite you on the bottom of the foot at any one moment. This is, a gift from the heavens. So one Lego parent tells another Lego parent, and they tell 2 friends, and all of a sudden, the velocity of sweepers are up 50% in 2 years.
Wow, that's a great example, because as soon as you said Bissell, I thought of my grandmother.
Yes, and also people who have worked in restaurants when they were little, like when they were 16, 17, 18, like that thing. We had more comments, yes, people's grandparents, or, oh, yeah, I used that when I was working in the Red Lobster in Fredonia, Florida, or wherever it was.
Right.
And they would say, oh, I never thought about that. And then what happens is, then they go, and that influencer person goes and they tell all their friends. And sometimes we're at physical locations where there are lots of Lego bricks and there's lots of kids and there's lots of carpet. And you'd see people go over, have a little conversation, and would either by the hand or just psychically haul people over and say, no, look. And we'd have a line of kids, and they'd be, oh, can I do it next? Can I do it next? And nobody had ever seen their 5-year-old willingly want to clean up stuff, and it picks them all up off the carpet, and there's no hassle, and there's nothing getting lost, and no more tears, and it's fabulous for everybody. Now, did it grow hair on top of people's heads with male pattern baldness? No. Did it cure cancer? No. Are we changing the course of humanity? No. But is it awesome that when your plane is delayed and you get at home at like 3 a.m, and is it awesome that you're not impaling yourself on one of these Lego bricks? It is. And for $30, what the heck? So also to remember, just as a bit here, the average word-of-mouth conversation in the United States is only 32 seconds long. So we're not talking about big, long diatribes with white papers, and we're talking about just one friend telling another friend while the kids are in swim practice, or people are talking in the narthex after church, or just, sitting around the whatever virtual or physical water cooler that is. Just, hey, I know this about you. I know this about this product or service. I think you should know about it because I think it could be important to you. Boom.
Boom. Great. Now, in just a moment, I'd like to ask you about how you differentiate yourself when you're in a very crowded market. I mean, Bissell is probably one of very few carpet sweepers on the market, so I get it that with the right strategy, they could really shine with word-of-mouth marketing. But what if you're just one of many? You're a dry cleaner or a car mechanic or a web designer, where there's so many of them out there. How do you set yourself apart? So I'd like you to address that. And also coming up on something you should know, If you travel and stay in hotels, you've probably heard by now that there are some germy and gross things in the hotel room, like the TV remote and the phone and the bedspread, because they're seldom, if ever, cleaned. But there are a few other things in that hotel room that you also need to be cautious about, and we'll discuss that all coming up in just a moment. Our sponsor today is Boostability. They're an SEO company that specializes in small business websites. So here's the premise. Used to be not long ago that when people wanted something, they'd search in the yellow pages. That's where you found products and services. But I don't know, can't remember the last time I used the yellow pages. I mean, today people search online. That's where you go to find things. So it's important that when people search for what your business sells, that your business website rank high in their search engine results. It's that simple. And that's what Boostability does. They help companies rank high in search engine results. Now, they've got this incredible operation up in Utah that I've been to a couple of times. And every day they are working on their thousands and thousands of clients' websites to improve their search engine ranking. Now, they have this really cool thing where you go to this website, it's myfreewebsitescore.com. You fill in some information, and you instantly get back your free website score and analysis. And that will tell you exactly how well your website is performing now and some things you can do to make it perform better. It's all free. Just go to myfreewebsitescore.com, myfreewebsitescore.com from Boostability. My guest today is Ted Wright. He is the CEO of a company called Fizz. It's a word-of-mouth marketing company in Atlanta, and he's also author of the book Fizz, which is all about word-of-mouth marketing. Now, I wanted to ask you, you gave a great example of how Bissell has done remarkable things with word-of-mouth marketing, but what if you're in a much more crowded field? You know, what if you have a break shop, or you're a web designer, or you work from home and you have a babysitting service? I mean, how do you differentiate yourself when you're one of many?
So you create differentiation by finding something that is unique at your core that you can do better than lots of other people. So let's think about a marketplace where you have lots of different things going on. We've worked with a couple of country acts, and there are new country acts this week, and there are new country acts next week, and there's going to be a whole bunch of new stuff next year, and there's a whole catalog of all this other stuff, going back half a century. So crowded market space, lots of noise, lots of vying for the entertainment dollar. So as a band, what you have to do is you have to say, okay, what are we going to really be about? And as we are about those things, who do we think are most likely to care about those things that we are going to be about? And so when you say, okay, who really cares, then you start to identify target, and instead of just people who like country music, you can get more narrow. And when you can get more narrow, you can get more specific. And as you get more specific as a brand, either a product or service, you have more and more people recognize in the offering that you're doing, like, oh, I would really like that. That is super cool for me. I should go get that. And then they go and they sample it. And if their experience matches the story that their friends told them, then they just stay and they continue to sample at whatever rate they're going to sample.
How do you find influencers to get your message to them?
So influencers, you don't find them, they find you. So let's go back to the personality traits for influencers. They like to try new things because they're new. They like to share stories with their friends, and they're intrinsically motivated. Because they like to share stories with their friends, they're always swimming through the sea of commercial information that's out there. Your job is not to try and corral the fish in the ocean, because that's a lot of work. Your job is to get the right bait, the right story. And you have to do that by thinking about, okay, what's my target and where are they going to be? And then you take that bait and you throw it into the ocean of humanity that you've got swimming around. And those people, if you do that right, those people that are influencers are going to, come up there as fish in our fish analogy. They're going to come and they're going to chomp down on your bait. And then you got them. The other way is to put on swim fins and goggles and swim through the ocean and chase fish. And that you can do, but it's way more expensive and way less efficient than creating an opportunity for the fish to come to you and to attract them to you.
So it's like in Jaws, when they're looking for the shark, they just throw some meat in the water and wait.
That's exactly right. So let's talk about Jaws for a second. All right. So let's talk. If we're going to hunt great white sharks, we take big pieces of bloody chum and we go deep into the ocean and we throw them in there and we hope there's a blood trail and then great white sharks will come and then we try and catch one. If we were going to try and attract angelfish inshore in a reef, taking that same chum of a story and dropping them in there would just scare the hell out of the angelfish and they'd run away. But if you go to the little grocery store and you get frozen peas, and peas are high in sugar and they're green, so fish can see them very well, and you throw frozen peas into, a reef, every fish will come out and there'll be fish fights and there'll be hundreds of thousands of fish show up. Again, if we're hunting great white sharks, if we throw some green peas into the ocean, ain't going to be the shark. So it is knowing who your audience is, which fish am I going after, and which chum is going to be best for that particular fish. And then your job as a marketer is not to chase the fish. Your job is to keep putting bait in the water because the fish will come to you, just like consumers will come to you. Consumers in the United States are super smart. We are the most marketed to people on the entire planet Earth. On average, a U.S. consumer gets hit with about 14,000 commercial messages a day. So we ain't stupid. We're very well trained in marketing, so we can make our own rational decisions every day. You have to put, as a marketer, you have to put a story that's going to attract people, and they'll make the right decision for themselves.
So how does social media fit into the word-of-mouth marketing equation? If you share something on Facebook or Twitter, is that word of mouth?
Social media did, to marketing what those TV shows did about vampires is they actually showed us that the vampires actually were out there, and this is how many there are out there, and, vampires. What social media cannot do is it can't really convert very well into actual sales. So the trust factor on a face-to-face conversation is 2 orders of magnitude greater than in a digital conversation, even if both sides of the digital conversation already know each other. This, we believe, there's some research on this, but this is coming out now. We believe this is because we know of 156 different, separate, distinct ways that somebody communicates with somebody else face-to-face. From hand gesticulation to voice modulation to vocabulary choice to facial, the whole thing. And we also know there's at least 11,000 years of cultural history about talking to one another, and there's all kinds of rituals like the handshake, or in Asia, the bow, and there's all kinds of things going on. In digital, that doesn't exist. There's only 6 known ways that we can figure out to communicate with somebody digitally. So there's so many fewer nuances in the conversation that the digital conversations are just not nearly as effective.
That's fascinating. I don't think people realize how sophisticated word-of-mouth marketing can be. I think the perception is mostly that, it's just one person tells another person, and it's great if that happens, and that's a great way to market your product. But clearly there's a lot more to it, and you've explained it really well. Ted Wright is the CEO of Fizz and author of the book Fizz. Thanks, Ted.
Thanks.
And finally today on Something You Should Know, some advice for travelers who stay in hotels. And sooner or later, we're all probably going to do that. There have been a lot of stories on the news about how the TV remote in a hotel room is very germy and full of bacteria, and you should disinfect it before you touch it and wrap it in a baggie when you use it and that kind of thing. And the same thing with the telephone and the bedspread, the investigative reports where they shine the blue light on the bedspread and it is so disgusting. But there are a couple of other things that you may not have heard of about the hotel room that you should steer clear of or be careful with. And this was amazing to me. The Today Show did a investigation of 5 top hotel chains. So these are not, sleazy hotels. They did an investigation of 5 top hotel chains and found that a lot of the times that the pillowcases are not changed between guests. So you may be putting your head on a pillowcase that somebody else slept on the night before, which, there may not be any visible stains, but people's hair and faces were on it. And that is just gross. And it apparently happens a lot. So the advice is to BYOP, bring your own pillowcase. And the glasses and mugs in the hotel room, investigation after investigation has found that oftentimes the maids they just rinse out the used glasses without really washing them, or even worse, they've caught people on hidden cameras, the maids actually spraying in cleaning fluid that clearly says do not drink, and wipe the glasses out with that. Now, luckily, a lot of hotels now offer those individual cups that are wrapped in plastic, and those are safe. But if you've just got cups next to the sink, I'd be very careful about using them. So BYOP, bring your own pillowcase, and maybe BYOC, bring your own cup. And that wraps up this episode of Something You Should Know. The podcast today sponsored by Boostability. If you have a small business website, the best thing you can do right now is to go to myfreewebsitescore.com, enter in some information, and you'll instantly get back your free website score and analysis to see how well your website performs now when people search for what you sell, and also get some free advice on what you can do to help your website rank better. It's myfreewebsitescore.com from Boostability. myfreewebsitescore.com. I'm Mike Carruthers. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode of Something You Should Know.